Hi, this is Chloe Sears, and this is my alternative assignment for Module 2, in which we read the essay From Mythology to Philosophy and watched the 3 videos that went a little bit more into depth about consciousness. So starting off, the essay was mainly focused on the ideas from the axial age, mostly from big philosophers like Confucius, Buddha, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And one of the things that stuck out to me within those beginning parts of the essay was the idea of Buddha and how he was pretty sheltered in the beginning of his life, but then started asking questions and began his journey in developing his consciousness by asking about suffering and death. And while I don't think I'm ever going to be a big philosopher or anything close to what Buddha was like, I saw a parallel between myself and his journey, because within this class, this is the first time that I'm actually examining my own consciousness and fully being in tune with the ideas and beginning my own journey in developing consciousness. So I thought that was interesting because I was able to relate to, starting to become more in tune with myself. So I thought that was really interesting. Another part of the axial age that I thought was really interesting was how there was that huge transition between mythological consciousness, or kind of just going with the group, and the idea that who you belonged to was more important than who you were, then transitioning into the individual thought or rational consciousness idea. So I thought that was really interesting because I hadn't really thought about how that transition occurred. I thought it was just kind of like, you developed consciousness, whereas you can see that with the help of axial faith, specifically being the idea that the responsibility is more on the individual. Within religion, that was like a really big thing that helped that transition for a lot of people. And the idea, there was an idea presented by Confucius that actually led me to have a pretty positive reaction, and he said that he made the observation that you must rely more on personal insight rather than the elders. And I think I had this positive interaction, or this emotional response, because for me, so much of my faith is based on taking the words of the Bible and applying it to my own life and being able to see, what that is applicable to my life. And, those things that were going on there, I'm able to relate to that and see how it's going to help me further develop who I am as a person and on my journey towards developing my inner self. So I think that it just made me feel good, because it was the idea that these people were finally being able to take what was being said within their religious services and apply it to their own self, and helping them answer these big questions that they had. So that just made me feel good, because it's that idea that you're being able to take your faith and apply it to answering those difficult questions, rather than just believing everything that in the big group, everybody in your big group, what they say. And so I thought that was really interesting. Another thing that I thought was really interesting was Socrates' idea that was presented within the essay, the idea of never accepting traditional certainties, and basically that you already know the truth, and that once you awaken your inner depth, you're going to have more control over yourself rather than magical control. And so that reminded me of the example that was given in the essay. The idea of puberty is that it's there, it's going to happen, you don't really have control over it, but you're going to be able to acknowledge that it's there and that you'll develop it over time. And that also, for me, related to the third video that we watched that was about what is consciousness. And one of the ideas that he presented within his talk was the idea that consciousness is fundamental, like matter and space. And so it's within each individual, and that it is a building block of every single person. So I thought that was kind of interesting, his idea of how fundamental that idea of consciousness is. And it reminded me of what Socrates said, is that you're not accepting the traditional thing because you already know that it's within you, and you already know that it is such a big part of you, and you're on your journey towards discovering it further. And I thought that was pretty an interesting insight, because I didn't really see how that video applied to anything else, but then I reread this idea given by Socrates and saw that it was kind of an awakening idea that it's within you, and that you're going on your journey at the pace at which you are able to acknowledge that it's there, and you are able to not be stubborn and accept it and start down your journey. So I thought that was really interesting. Another thing relating to the axial age, as well as the 4 different stages of Greek religion being the tribal idea, then the Olympian religion, then various movements of philosophy, and then finally a response to the failed attempts of Hellenism. I don't know if I said that right, but was the idea that it was the idea of neuroplasticity that was presented within the first video. I thought that was really interesting because she presented that idea that it would be biologically feasible as an adult that as you learn and struggle, you're leading to a more structural and foundational change. So it kind of helped to solidify the idea that as an adult within those different like religions, you would have been able to make that change. It's like from tribal to the Olympian idea, and then like I don't know, I just thought it was really interesting because it's this idea that you would be able to, as an adult, change your thinking so that you were able to acknowledge that you were on a journey in developing consciousness. And you would be able, as an adult, to change your thinking so much that you would be able to accept that there was something like consciousness, even if it wasn't something that had originally been a part of your religion or any part of your life. So I thought that was really interesting because that idea... I didn't, again, it was similar to the third videos. I didn't really see how it applied to consciousness, but then I was able to make that connection within the changes within the religions and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, I definitely think that consciousness is still very confusing. It's something that I need to dive a little bit deeper into, but I think I have a good foundation knowing that it's acknowledging your sense of self and that it's further developing your journey towards answering those big questions that you have within philosophy and gaining more wisdom. But yeah, thank you.